My name's Tom Cheesewright. I'm an applied futurist at Book of the Future. We help organisations to see, share and respond to a coherent vision of tomorrow.
First question, is the internet broken at its core, and why?
Certainly if you talk to a number of heavyweights around the floor, that would be the picture, that would be the position. In that, when the internet was designed, at its core, there was still some kind of circuit switch thinking, rather different to the fully packet switch model we might expect. And that introduces some complications, some inefficiencies that mean that, now that we get to the age of Netflix, the age of huge quantities of video moving over the web and over these broadband access providers, it starts to damage the business model. There's clearly a short-term future for the internet and for broadband where we start to see growing speeds and we have all these arguments about neutrality, but long term, certainly some of the experts I've been talking to today, people like Martin Geddes, there is a prospect of us having to re-engineer the internet from the ground up.
And I mean, looking back on the last couple of years, has the development of the internet, has it taken any surprising turns in your view? What maybe?
I think once you create an open platform, an open space, then actually the applications will always surprise. Where the people who've created networks and platforms have historically proven to be very, very bad at working out what those applications might be. That's why walled gardens fail. That's why telecoms operators historically haven't necessarily been the best people at creating new services. And so when you start to see the introduction of over-the-top services, you start to see the introduction of, I think actually the Internet of Things is really interesting. The price of putting an internet connection in a device has fallen so low now, sub-dollar, then actually just about anything being connected to the internet starts to have value because the capital cost of putting that connection in there is so small. So the internet connected smoke alarms, the thermostats, half the floor here in the exhibition is people demonstrating different smart home technologies, something that really wouldn't have perhaps been on the radar of an operator not that long ago.
How do you anticipate these seeming paradoxes at the heart of the internet playing themselves out in the next few years? What solutions do you think people are going to find, even if it's only an approximation of a solution now?
Certainly the message this morning that I've seen from people about how we deal with these paradoxes has been very much a message of compromise, and perhaps compromise from surprising quarters. People you might think who are very much on the left wing of the internet, people who are on my panel this morning talking about net neutrality, people like Tor, people like BitTorrent, really preaching a message of compromise, understanding that they are reliant on the operators and those operators, the service providers, remaining sustainable for the foreseeable future. I think government's clearly going to have a role to play. Regulation's going to be interesting. There's clearly very different attitudes on each side of the Atlantic. But it's going to be a compromise over the next few years till we get to the point where we get to an economic model that supports this redevelopment. And I hope, my big hope is that the situation remains open, remains and continues to support innovation as it has done for the last 10 years.
And I've spent a couple of days here at Broadband World Forum, and as a futurist, where have you felt the future is most apparent?
I think the widespread acceptance of connectivity in devices. So if you like, we're at kind of peak screen age at the moment. So we all carry multiple devices that have a screen as the primary interface. The next step is very much computers that start to make decisions for us, whether that's by using processing offloaded to the cloud or actually increasing intelligence in the device itself. And you see this in smart thermostats, smart security systems, etc. And actually, at that point, the screen starts to go away. And I think there's a really interesting acceptance here than actually some level of contextual processing about what we want from our devices, what we want from our homes and our offices is moving away from manual control on the screen into smart control in the cloud and in the device.
Looking ahead finally to next year's Broadband World Forum, what do you think the hot topics will be? How do you think it will have changed with the times?
I think there's going to be a huge debate over the next year about ownership of data. The European Union's expressing pretty clear views that data belongs to us as citizens, us as individuals, not the service providers who historically have taken access to our data in return for the service. And so there's a challenge there. There's a battle to be had. I think it's a battle that the European Union's gearing up for, and it's a battle that's going to result in very different answers on each side of the Atlantic. And so for me, perhaps the big debate next year is going to be around, like, the return on investment of data. Who owns data? Who gets to sell it? Who gets to take money for it? And does some of that go to offset perhaps the increasing costs of delivering broadband services?